In 1806, this guy, Napoleon, took his army and marched to the northeast, direction of Prussia. In the village near Jena, he met the Prussian army and devastated it. Complete disaster for the Prussian state and for their king, Friedrich Wilhelm III. And as often is the case, it takes a big crisis for something to change. And the king wanted change. And he wanted to change a lot of things. At the end of the Ancien Régime, if you want to, the Middle Ages, the feudal system which was still existing up there, and he wanted a complete reform. And he wanted to reform the education system. Enter this guy on the right. He was tasked to reform the system. Old system was, teaching was, information was being passed on from generation to generation. Actually, the professor teaching to the students what he or she, mostly he, had learned from his professor without much thinking. They even used the same course material for generations. And the guy on the right, Wilhelm von Humboldt, was going to change that. And in 1810, which is a mere 4 years after the battle, he created the University of Berlin. And the University of Berlin was new. All the education was going to be based on research for the first time. And that model became very successful. Actually, Berlin University was the home of no less than 55 Nobel Prize winners. People that studied there or that taught there. This model became very successful. It spread out to Europe, to the US, and afterwards to the entire world. So that's where the basis is of our research university. Actually, the Berlin University was renamed the Humboldt University afterwards to honor Wilhelm and his younger brother Alexander, who was also a famous scientist. So here we have it. The thesis. Research creates better teaching results in better research. That is the fundamental thesis of the research university. Time for some research, right? We need to do research. So what are we going to research? We're going to research the thesis that better research leads to better education. Interesting, because you would expect those research universities to jump all over that, to start researching it and to come up with the ultimate proof that better research results in better teaching. Because after all, that is their claim to fame. That is why they consider themselves to be the best institutions in the world for teaching. Okay, so there's been a lot of research actually, tons of research. That much research that you can do research on the research, meta-research, or a literature study. And lots of literature studies and meta-research has been conducted. And I want to share just one with you. One done in Norway, 2016. Norway, pretty sophisticated country with a pretty sophisticated education system. And there they researched no less than 200 studies. 200 recent studies because they had to be past 2000. Before 2000 did not qualify, only studies after the year 2000. 200 studies. What did they find? For the research-teaching link, the evidence can be characterized as ambiguous. And I'll pause here for a moment, the evidence is inconclusive. Inconclusive. Now, when scientists start to use difficult or convoluted words, it typically means there is something happening there. So, what is the opposite of inconclusive? Because if if something is you don't understand, if they tell you what the opposite is, typically it makes it clear. So the opposite is conclusive, decisive, certain, definite, sure, adequate, satisfactory, sufficient, clear, perfect. In other words, the link between research and teaching is none of the above. None of those. It is not there. we have a problem. We have a serious problem now. Why? Because all the people who have the power within universities, who are they? They're researchers. And we're expecting researchers to come up with a conclusion that their position is not scientifically justified. Doesn't mean that there shouldn't be research. It should mean that the research university, where research is at the core, is maybe not such a good idea. Maybe not. Actually, research universities have confirmed that is not true. So, we need another crisis. We need another Napoleon. We need something to happen. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever way you look at it, he's no longer around, so can't use him. We need something else. But guess what? Something else is happening. It's on the verge of happening. It's not as sudden and as deadly as the Battle of Jena. It's not going to be as short as the Battle of Jena, which only lasted for 1 day. So, but it is still, it's going to have a much bigger impact. And that something is called digitization. Digitization, once you can convert something into the digital world, zeros and ones, it follows Moore's law. It evolves quickly. It can lead to exponential growth. It can lead to fundamental disruption. This is what's happening with education today, as we speak. And I'm just going to give you 2 examples. The first one is Coursera. Company started 6 years ago by Stanford professors. Today have 37 million students, 37 million students, a turnover of $140 million, and they are supposed to become the first unicorn, company valued at 1 billion or more, as a startup in the education sector. Second example is closer to home, a company called DataCamp. They were founded 3 years ago. Today they have over 3 million students, and they teach them data science. They teach them the latest, the best, with immediate feedback, high quality from the best teachers around the world for a fraction of the cost that you would pay anywhere else. So you have Martijn there, Jonathan in the middle, and Dieter, who's an alumnus of Group T. They started the company. They just raised $25 million to keep the company growing. This is how education is going to change. So, back to the University of Berlin, Humboldt, 55 Nobel Prizes, right? One of them is this guy, you all know. He taught there from 1914 till 1933. When the Nazis raised to power in Germany, he wisely decided it was time to go some other place. He could go wherever he wanted, right? He was the rock star of physics. Guess where he went? He decided to go to Princeton in the US. You know what the main reason was? In Princeton, he did not have to teach. Teaching distracted him from his research. He didn't really want to do that. So, end of the research university, well, it's about time we're going to restore the equilibrium between teaching and research. So we have to do this for the students, we have to do this for society, we have to do it because it's the right thing to do. Thank you.